Stop that ship! Blast them!
Welcome back to Propology 101, and today we're going to continue talking about the A New Hope Sand Troopers, their big rifles, and the one we're going to talk about today is probably my favorite one. It's called the T-21. Now, we don't really ever get to see the T-21 that much in the Star Wars universe after A New Hope. Actually, we get to see it more in Battlefront than we ever did in the movies. But it's still a really cool blaster, and it's worth talking about. Now, the T-21 is best seen when they're going to intercept the Millennium Falcon, and the commander of the Stormtroopers, the lead Stormtrooper, is carrying the T-21, the big blaster with the big fat barrel. And, of course, just like practically every blaster in Star Wars, it is based on a real firearm. It's based on the Lewis gun. Now, the Lewis gun was developed by an American colonel named Lewis in 1911. And he presented it to the U.S. military, and they weren't all that interested in it. So he decided he would introduce it to the British military, and they actually liked it and started manufacturing it just before World War I started, and they manufactured it all through World War II. Matter of fact, it was also during World War I. It was licensed to be manufactured in Belgium also. It served in World War I, and it also served in World War II. There are a few things that are kind of cool about it. The one obvious feature is it's got a big fat plate magazine that sits right on top. The bullets feed in a circle and then into the gun. That's really not an American thing. It's very uncommon for Americans or American gun makers to create a magazine like this, but you do have to understand, in that era, machine guns and that type of firearm, even semi-automatic pistols, that's all new technology. So there's all kinds of ideas being done. And that magazine was just one other thing that was just kind of, it was actually kind of an early version of that type of magazine. And we do see a lot of those magazines later on during World War I and especially World War II. The Russians kind of like their big plate style magazines for their machine guns. Anyway, the other really noticeable thing about the Lewis gun is it has a really fat barrel. I mean, it's like 3 or 4, it's probably almost 4 inches round. And what that actually is, it's a heat shroud or a cooling shroud. And the unique design of the gun is when you fired it, it would cause a Venturi effect or a low pressure and would pull air in from the back to go through the cooling tube or the barrel jacket to cool the gun. And this was a unique way of trying to keep the barrel cool. Now, the British didn't just use this as an infantry weapon. It was also used on aircraft. Now, the aircraft versions, they removed the shroud. So it was just the actual barrel of the gun. And they also, some versions, they removed the buttstock and put a little handle back here so it could be wielded inside of a plane by a gunner. What was done to make the Lewis gun the T-21? Well, the very first thing is they removed that big plate magazine. It's gone. That was the biggest change. Oh, most of them had a bipod, and it doesn't have a bipod on it. But what it did have is they kept the big cooling shroud, and they coiled, it looks like some sort of cable or thick wire was coiled around the rear section of the cooling shroud. And then there was a greebly that originally I thought was probably something like this. This is a crankshaft greebly from the Revell Visible Engine Kit. After closer inspection, the part looks like it's too small, but it's pretty much in the same shape. But I don't think it's a part from the Revell engine. I think it's something that's shaped very similar to this, and that is also near the back of the barrel shroud on top of the coils. Besides that, we don't know very much more about the prop itself, any other modifications or anything they did to it. But with that drum, with that plate magazine removed, you can see all the mechanics, the feeding mechanics, and right behind where that would be, it had a tall flip-up rear sight when you weren't using the gun, the sight would be stowed down to keep it protected. And you can see that too. That's kind of a cool, unique look to the gun that you can also catch in the profile. And that's not an added part. That's actually also the rear sight. Besides that, it has a strap. They use a strap, but I think the strap may have been a strap that was commonly used with the Lewis gun. Besides that, there was really not much known, and there's not much that I can find that they really did to it. It's pretty much a Lewis gun without the magazine, the coils added, and then a pie-shaped or quarter-round greebly added, and that's pretty much it. Thank you for joining along while we discuss the Lewis gun or the T-21. Join us next time when we pull out another prop, tear it apart, and see what it's made of.